When the moment comes that you need to rescue somebody, will you be ready? Will you have the right equipment? And will you know how to use that equipment? It's one thing to get the boat back to the person who's fallen overboard. It's another thing to get the person back on the boat. I'm John Rumanier. I've been sailing for 50 years and I've been nervous about falling overboard for all those 50 years. I teach safety. I wrote the Annapolis Book of Seamanship. And I've written 2 books about storms, so I take the sea and the dangers of sailing very seriously. In this video, we'll be talking about a unique way of rescuing people who've fallen overboard. The LifeSling method of recovering a person from the water was developed by the Sailing Foundation. The LifeSling consists of a buoyant sling that goes under the victim's armpits and allows him or her to be hoisted on board. The sling is attached to a long floating line that's made fast to the boat at the stern. Both the sling and the line are stowed in a pouch on the stern pulpit. The LifeSling is quick and easy to use. When someone falls overboard, rip open the Velcro closure on top of the pouch and throw the sling into the water. We've seen how to set up the LifeSling. Now let's look at how to use it. Here are the basic steps for a rescue by a cruising couple sailing upwind with a man falling overboard. Head the boat into the wind, throw the sling. Turn the boat. Drag the sling around the victim, circling him. The victim puts on the sling. The sailor stops the boat, pulls the sails down. The sailor pulls the victim to the boat's windward side and secures him. Now the sailor can take a deep breath. The victim is safe. Rig the tackle, hook on the tackle, and hoist the victim on deck. Now let's look at this rescue in detail. Head the boat into the wind to stay close to the victim and slow the boat down. Open the pouch and throw the LifeSling into the water behind the boat. Tack the boat, but don't touch the jib sheets, and circle the victim without adjusting the jib sheets. Sail around the victim until the victim can reach the line. Stop the boat by heading up into the wind and taking the sails down while the victim climbs into the sling. Pull the line to the boat on the windward side and lift up on the line so the victim's face is well clear of the water. Now it's time to rig the tackle. Clip into the bowline of the LifeSling. Take the top hook and hook it into a spare halyard and hoist the halyard well up. Lead the line from the tackle through a jib sheet block back to your largest winch and grind up on the winch to pull the victim out of the water. Here the rescuer is grabbing the tackle from a convenient location in the boat. Another good place to stow the tackle is in the bottom of the LifeSling pouch. As you rig the tackle, make sure the halyard doesn't foul in the rigging aloft. Be sure to uncleat the yellow LifeSling line before you start hoisting the victim with the tackle. We've just seen how to use the LifeSling and make a crew overboard rescue on a cruising sailboat upwind. Now let's look at how to do it downwind. Here are the steps for a downwind recovery by a double-handed crew where the jib is swung out to windward, as is usually the case when a boat's sailing offshore. After the victim goes over the side, the skipper turns the boat into the wind, disengaging the autopilot of the steering vane if necessary. The skipper releases the jib sheet so the jib flies free, deploys the life sling, and circles the victim, making the rescue as we described earlier. Be sure to uncleat the yellow LifeSling line before you start hoisting the victim with the tackle. Sailors often ask if a recovery can be made by a boat under spinnaker. The answer is yes. With a fully crewed boat with a spinnaker up, after the person goes over the side, one sailor is designated to be the spotter. That person stands in the cockpit directly in front of the helmsman and points to the person in the water. The helmsman heads the boat up as the spinnaker pole is let forward to the headstay. When the spinnaker collapses, the halyard is released and the spinnaker is pulled down on deck. The boat is then tacked and proceeds with a regular LifeSling recovery. If you have a big, strong crew on board, you won't need a tackle to get the victim out of the water. Just lead the halyard directly to a winch. We've been looking at rescues in sailboats. Now let's look at one in a cruising powerboat. Here are the steps for a rescue from a double-handed powerboat. When the victim goes into the water, immediately swing the stern away from the victim. Deploy the sling and circle the victim, as we've described before. Once the victim is in the sling, stop the boat, put the engine in neutral, and pull the victim to the boat. You can haul the victim out using a tackle rigged to a davit, or help the victim up a swim ladder. In very calm water, you may be able to use a swim step. Your boats may be arranged differently from the ones we've shown in this video. That's a very good reason why you should go out and practice.
You can use a bucket and a fender to simulate a victim in the water. Practice circling, dragging the LifeSling to the target. Practice hoisting a victim by having somebody lie down on the dock and rigging the tackle to hoist him or her aboard.
Today there are two types of LifeSlings. The LifeSling 2 comes in a soft pouch, and the LifeSling 3 comes in a hard container and has some features that aren't found on the LifeSling 2. There are two types of tackles used on LifeSlings. A tackle with a 3-to-1 purchase is generally used on sailboats where the line can be led to a winch. The tackle with a 5-to-1 purchase is used on powerboats, which don't have winches, and on sailboats where a little extra power is necessary. 3 questions are often asked about LifeSling rescues. Can I use the engine? Yes, you can use the engine, but be very careful to keep the propeller away from lines and away from the victim. What if I can't get back to the victim with the jib sheet cleated? In that case, uncleat the jib sheet and sail back to the victim. What if I can't get the victim on board? Cleat the LifeSling line with the victim's face well clear of the water. and call for help on the radio. We've introduced you to the LifeSling, how to set it up, and how to use it. Now it's up to you. Get to know your gear, get to know the skills, and practice, practice, practice.